Welcome, I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. Pause the video so that you can grab a notepad and a pen, because I want you to commit to yourself that you will jot down something actionable, some kind of action item that you will implement in your business today, because that's what this is all about. We want to inspire you to move your business forward, drive business through implementation. Can I ask you a question? You ever hear that? People say that to you? Can I ask you a question? That's always struck me as a rather ironic thing for people to say. Of course, when someone asks you, can I ask you a question? They've already asked you a question. I've always wanted to reply, you mean another one? Of course, what people mean is, can you give me an answer? Can you tell me the truth to the question that is going to proceed, or rather is going to follow this question? And that doesn't sort of roll off the lips so well, doesn't roll off the tongue so well. So, can I ask you a question is what people say. Well, I'm thinking about that concept as it relates to business, and I want you to think about all the questions you answer in a day, all the solutions you provide. And I want to encourage you to not answer questions immediately, not to be reactive the way I have been for so long. When someone asks me a question, I instantly, where my brain goes is it instantly looks for the answer. It sort of looks in the Rolodex of my brain and my experience and wants to reply. It's just a reaction. It's automatic for me. And so often in the context of business, that is the wrong thing to do. Now, I've mentioned before in one of these discussions that sometimes the person asking you the question should not be addressing their question to you. They maybe do not report to you directly. They have their own boss, and it may be that they have an ulterior motive, and that's why they're asking you the question. It may be that they didn't like the answer they received from their own supervisor, and so they didn't like what mom said, so they're going to go and ask dad, so to speak. And of course, with that in mind, you shouldn't just automatically answer questions. So if somebody who does not report directly to you comes and asks you a question, the first thing your default position should be is, why are they asking me this question? And I want you to freeze, sort of stop, and say to them, how come you're not asking this of your supervisor? Why are you addressing this directly to me? And then find out the answer to that. But that's not really what I want to focus on today. Instead, let's say that the person does report directly to you. You are the most qualified to answer this question, and it just makes sense that you would be the person that they would ordinarily address such a query to. Still, I want you to have a default position to ask yourself, is this a question I should be answering? Really, what is at the heart of what I'm saying here is that this may not be the crux of the problem they're trying to solve. And by answering questions reactively, we often go off track. So somebody asks you a question that relates to a problem they're trying to solve in the business, and you very proudly have an answer because you're the expert, you're very bright, you're experienced with this type of thing. You give them the answer and off they go. Or somebody asks, and it's not just a question. I want to expand this concept to tasks, fulfillment of tasks and objectives. So when somebody gives you an objective or a task to fulfill, even it might be really a piece of cake for you, easy for you to do, I want your default position to always be, wait a minute, let's pause, let's give pause to reflect on whether or not this is the ideal task, this is the crux of the issue, this is the question we should be answering. Because often, as discussed in the concept of the 5 whys, you're not at the root cause of a problem that is trying to be solved yet. And so more questioning needs to be answered. Now, this came up recently in my organization, and somebody in management came to me and they were asking me for advice why they couldn't solve a particular dilemma they were in. And they're familiar, this person was familiar with the concept of, if you are apparently encountering a contradiction, check your premises because one of them is likely to be false. If you are experiencing a dilemma, that is a symptom of at least one improper paradigm. And yet, he still was struggling and asked for advice. So my default position was, or my reactionary position was, to answer the question and to give advice to help him solve the problem. But then I remembered the advice I'm giving you now, and I coached him on that. And that is, just a second here, let's back up. Is this the right problem to solve? Why are we solving this problem? And when I started to get into those whys again, and we were asking different questions, is this necessary? Do we need to do this? Even though we had a solution, we could come up with ways to improve the outcome of what we were trying to get better to that desired state, to accomplishing the objective that he was struggling with. Even though we could make progress through our discussion and our communication and our collaboration, still we went back and said, but should we solve this problem? Sometimes solving a problem actually just means it's going to recur down the road, or it's going to be a distraction from the real thing that you should be working on, or the root cause of a problem or dilemma that you're experiencing. So, again, can I ask you a question? Sure, you just did. Would you like to ask me another one? The person asks you a question, your default position is, why is this person asking this of me? I wonder. And so you should question back. That's maybe a little bit frustrating for people if they just want a quick answer. But to be an effective manager, you need to understand what is at the heart of what it is you're trying to accomplish when you respond to a question, when you respond to somebody. So, it's kind of like saying, would you rather have a quick response, or would you rather have the truth and a favorable outcome of the real underlying objective that you have in this discussion? And those are, again, that doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, and it's not the natural way we are as reactive human beings. We want to solve problems for people, and we feel proud of ourselves that we're able to do it. But it's not the right thing to do. An effective manager considers what it is that he is responding to, what it is he's working on, what it is that he's dedicating the mental power and effort toward resolving, because you may be going off track. In the instance I just relayed to you, I said to the individual, I understand that I haven't answered your question yet. And we can go back to that, and we will if it's still important to you. But what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to coach you, I was saying to him, I'm trying to coach you to ask these questions each and every time, not even just for this situation. So you see, what I'm getting across was, even in the coaching moment, there was still a tendency for us to address the issue at hand. And even though we were backing up and asking questions, I wanted to make sure that the individual I was coaching understood this is a coaching moment that can be universally applied across all of your management decisions, all of your dilemmas you're trying to solve or challenges you're trying to address in the company. You need to back up and ask yourself, why are we addressing this question? Is this the real fundamental question, yes or no? Yes or no? I think it's Tony Robbins who is really famous for talking about ask good questions. It's all about asking good questions. I would agree with that. If you ask good questions, you can come up with great answers. You'll have great ideas to innovate and to improve your business. If you're asking the wrong questions, conversely, then you're going to end up off course. And as we've said before, if you're off course just a little bit over enough time, you're going to be miles and miles away your trajectory is going to lead you completely away from your long-term objectives. So when you share this with your people, let them know what I'm trying to do with you is get you to do this in all instances. Every time you're faced with a question or a task or an objective, ask and understand what is the underlying objective. So many meetings I go into, we start communicating back and forth and asking and answering questions, and I go, well, just a second here, what is the objective? Or what I just was talking about earlier, where if somebody asks me a question, I start hearing them out and they'll give me a lot of background that is meant to justify or rather explain the fact that they don't have the information they need. And they're giving me all sorts of information. I say, well, just a second here. And before I answer, I say, what is your objective? Why are you asking me this? And that it may be a little frustrating and may be a little off-putting for the person who's asking the question, but you have a reason for doing this. You don't want to lead them astray. You want to make sure that you answer the question correctly, or rather, you want to be sure that you answer the correct question. You address the crux of the issue. You address the underlying objective, and you address the root cause if there happens to be a challenge that you're trying to address. This, again, like so many things I discuss, may seem obvious. Well, yes, but it's not your habit. I almost guarantee you. If it is your habit, great. You're an effective manager. It certainly was not my habit. My habit is, I think, like most people I've observed, where somebody asks a question or someone delegates a task and you go about doing it. And at minimum, by asking more questions before proceeding, before responding, you can make sure you do a better job of accomplishing the task. You can do a better job of answering the question. Very often we misunderstand the question. So that may be all that you're accomplishing here by asking for some clarification, is that you want to know that you're answering the correct question. It is a funny thing, the English language and other languages, I suppose, but somebody can ask you something and you can completely misinterpret where they're coming from, give them a response, and everybody's going off track because you misunderstood really what they were trying to say. There's this thing when we communicate, especially in business, but I don't know if it's especially in business, maybe it's in all relationships, but when we communicate, there's all these assumptions that occurs. That's why artificial intelligence is a difficult problem to solve, this machine learning, because machines don't make those assumptions. They only operate with the data that they have. Yet humans are great at things like driving, and we anticipate things and we make assumptions, and we're very good at that. And when we communicate, our nature in doing just that, in making those assumptions and anticipating where we're going, oh, I think I see where you're going with it. You might not say that out loud, but in the back of your mind, you're thinking, oh, I know where he's going with this. And you jump ahead. And you've been involved in conversations where the person goes, that's not at all where I was going with that. That's not what I meant. So do yourself a favor as an attempt to be a more effective manager, to slow down and ask yourself and ask others whether or not this is a question we should be addressing. Why? Why are we doing this? And then once you do agree, yes, we're at the right question. Now, by all means, now you can let your experience shine and you can be the smartest guy in the room and help them out and all that kind of stuff. Just don't allow that pride and that desire to sort of check something off, like done, I've done that, I've answered, I responded to the email, I answered the question. By the way, this doesn't just occur in face-to-face conversations. Of course, all communication has these assumptions and the nature of what we're discussing today built in. You may be inclined to quickly reply to an email. Again, as off-putting as it may be to the recipient of your response, you want to sometimes say, well, just a second here, I'm not sure I understand what you're getting at. Why are you asking me this question? What is your objective? What is the underlying problem that we're trying to solve here? By slowing down and doing that, you will clarify and you'll give better answers, and you will address the actual problems, the root cause of the things that are leading to these questions. So, can I ask you a question? Well, that depends. Is it the right question or not? That's where we're going to leave it today. I hope you got something out of this and that made sense to you. So leave a comment and let me know if you'd like me to elaborate on this, or if you challenge, you have some pushback. Have you encountered a situation in which you went on to reactively answer a question and it really took you off course? Leave some comments that we can all learn from. It's really great when we can learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.